The peaceful pastures of the Danube, 2,000 years ago. Until the Romans came and tried to crush the German barbarians. They built a great double city here for their legions and for 60,000 civilians to defend this northern border of the Roman Empire. Nothing remains today but two vast arenas and a great, mysterious imperial arch. Most of the city is still there, under the ground, waiting to be revealed.
A complete sunken metropolis, impossible to excavate in 1,000 years. But non-invasive, high-tech archaeology can give us answers.
Scanners today transform cornfields into streets, baths, temples. And in an amazing discovery, into a place where men trained, fought, and died, and helped create the spirit of Rome. Right here in Carnuntum. Lost city of gladiators. A high-tech camera plane leaves Vienna flying 40 miles to the east. On board, Wolfgang Neubauer, leader of a new breed of archaeologists worldwide. These people don't just dig, they look. From above, with ultra-high-resolution cameras and scanners, and then on the ground with radar and magnetometers. There's little to see for the naked eye. Just fields and forests in a flat landscape. And then you see it. The clear remains of a huge oval construction where the Romans amused themselves with their cruel entertainments on the edge of their empire. And just a few miles further on, in the same sunken city, another giant arena built for an audience of thousands. Between these lonely ruins, the archaeologist can see in his mind's eye a lost metropolis 3 miles across. A garrison, a port, an administrative center, and a giant city. Set away to one side, the great arena and the mystery it hides.
All the naked eye can see from the air is green fields, but an aerial photograph from 1981 was really puzzling.
The smudgy old photo, long forgotten, showed a dark spot next to the arena, nothing else. Only when Neubauer was given the task of scanning the whole city did it re-emerge. A color change means the rain is draining differently. That means something is different under the ground. But what? So Neubauer rerouted his plane away from the main city to the spot next to the arena. Maybe there'd be nothing. But 30 more years of plowing, drying, and climate change, and a new generation of cameras might turn up something new. And it did. Time to analyze the results.
This is from the 1980s, and it clearly shows this large spot here.
Yeah.
We were not sure if this is due to geological structures or if there is really archaeology below. And if I turn on now the new aerials from the last years, it's the first time that we can also see in the aerials the walls. So especially here, the entrance. Here, the walls going up for the big building complex.
It's too big for a villa, too small for, say, a prison. And why build it so close to the arena? A city with two great arenas would need gladiators. They would need to be found. And they must be trained. Starting as raw recruits. From all over the empire they would come, some as prisoners, some as slaves, some even as volunteers. Like Atticus from North Africa. An ex-soldier, looking for adventure and a last chance to get ahead. Young, fit and hungry. That would be how every one of them started. But how can archaeologists really know what went on here? At Vienna's Ludwig Boltzmann Institute, the scientists have developed electronic scanners that can survey hectares at a time, without the need for slow and expensive digs. Find something interesting, and they can zero right in. The scans gather data that build to three-dimensional maps of the landscape beneath the surface. First, magnetometers measure variations in the Earth's magnetic field, perhaps where rocks or earth have been moved. Every scan is recorded and stored as raw data with a precise GPS location. Next, ground-penetrating radar looks deeper to create a 3D image of walls and foundations still in place. This is mapping the past. Guided by GPS, the scans are merged with the new aerial photos to show every detail of the freshly discovered complex. The combination of images reveals one final, vital element.
Can we compare this to the magnetic results? Yeah. Look here. We can see much more detail. The building gets much more complete. So we have all the outer walls very detailed now. So it's much more information. But the most important, of course, is the circular structure in the courtyard.
A circular structure that only showed up when radar, magnetometer scans and photographs were merged. Neubauer recognized at once what he had discovered.
Another arena in Carnuntum. A training arena in the center of a gladiator school. The first complete gladiator school ever found outside Rome.
Rome's Colosseum, the world-famous, iconic mother of all the empire's arenas. Right next to it, the ruins of a gladiator school. You can clearly see the cells the gladiators lived in, the tunnel to the arena. Enough to tell an archaeologist what to look for. And to visualize it exactly where it once stood. The large heated training hall. The house where the owner of the school lived, the lanista. The gladiator cells. And here, in the corner of the courtyard, the training arena. This is where Atticus would spend the next years of his life.
Unus! 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 Unus!
If he impressed the school's owner, the Lannister.
Repetite! Unus! Repetite! Et avitite!
The training arena and the walls of the gladiator school confined the lives of several dozen men. Historians don't agree whether the school was run like a jail or whether the fighters could come and go at will. But even as a jail, it offered considerable comfort. The men had to be kept in good shape. The spectators wanted muscle as well as skill, and the Lannister knew it. The training would have been relentless. Speed, accuracy, stamina, and the occasional trick. All to win the approval of the Lannister. But finally, any archaeologist, even the most high-tech, will want to see the hard evidence. Because even the most detailed scans can only get down to 10 centimeters square. To get in closer, you have to dig. And thanks to the scans, Neubauer's team knows exactly where to dig. Once the topsoil has been mechanically removed, the more sensitive work begins. The soil is sifted for tiny artifacts, by hand, for hours on end. One of Wolfgang's students finds a small metal object. It's a single scale from a gladiator's breastplate. And there's more.
Below the stands, we found a huge amount of animal bones, especially from poultry.
It looks like Centurion's fried chicken wasn't just the snack of choice at modern games. As they strip away the arena's foundations, the team finds the last crucial piece of evidence, a hole for the practice pole called the palus. It worked something like a boxer's punch bag. The point of the palus was to encourage absolute precision through endless practice, without the need for an opponent.
Here in this pit was the palus. The inner ring was marked by pebbles set in mortar, and the outermost circle formed a boundary between the arena and the spectator stands.
And just when Atticus might think he'd mastered all the skills, the coach, a retired gladiator, would invite him for a mock fight. Actually, it was a compliment. A rite of passage. It was a sign that the coach and the lanista were beginning to take their new recruit seriously. Atticus was moving towards his goal as a sporting idol, a profit center, and as a killer.
The social status of a gladiator was a very ambiguous one. On the one hand, he was an outcast, living outside the normal civil order. On the other hand, he could live the life of a star and has his fans and his own manner of honor and distinction and make a fortune.
But until he made his oath of absolute obedience to the lanista, none of this could happen. Atticus must swear to accept his fate, whatever it might be. I promise to submit. I will endure burning, being bound, beaten, killed by the sword. As a true gladiator, I will deliver up my body and my soul. As the training progressed, as their bodies and skills were honed, the gladiators-to-be would begin to choose or be selected for their speciality. Now it was about one aim, to fight in the great arena. They knew that the men they were training with, who had become their friends, would soon be their deadly adversary. Atticus was selected as a retiarius. His head unprotected, his weapons the long forked trident and a net. Maybe less glamorous than the bronze-helmed schizo, but it let you fight at a distance. And the helmet could get in the way. One other factor kept the gladiators fighting fit. Gladiators also owed their condition to the school's kitchen. To a hungry fighter in the training arena, the smell of dinner simmering on the fire would signal a welcome break in his grueling routine. A gladiator's diet was not exactly what you might expect. In the ruins of Ephesus, another Roman city on the coast of today's Turkey, the skeletons of several dozen gladiators were discovered. Bones are a chemical archive, storing information about a person's eating habits. A specialized lab at the University of Vienna analyzed the Ephesus bones. Fabian Kantz is a forensic anthropologist and an expert in reconstructing personal histories from skeletons.
Our analyses have shown that the gladiator diet was mainly vegetarian. It predominantly consisted of beans and barley. The beans in the diet provided the proteins necessary for the muscle buildup, and the barley provided the carbohydrates necessary for every athlete.
A popular nickname for the gladiators was Hodearii, barley guzzlers. Meat was scarce or absent, not just at the gladiator school, but generally in Roman kitchens, except for the rich. The gladiators knew it was healthy. That didn't mean it was tasty. But there was no choice. They had to obey, they'd taken an oath. A constant reminder of the men's destiny is the great arena just beyond the wall. Impossible to think further than this. Or maybe just as far as the second big arena on the far side of the city. And yet, the city of Carnuntum was extremely well connected to the rest of the Roman Empire. And for a very good reason. Roman roads have survived millennia. On them, riches of the Mediterranean arrived in Carnuntum from Italy, Spain, and North Africa. Fabulous wealth also came from the north. Amber from the shores of the Baltic Sea, worth its weight in gold. The ancient Amber Road crossing the Danube made Carnuntum a hub of continental trade. With trade and riches comes the need for defense, and Carnuntum's third great surviving ruin, nicknamed the Heathen's Gate. It was easy for archaeologists to reconstruct the Heathen's Gate's original shape. But its purpose remained a riddle. The great monument stood alone outside the city with no sign of any walls nor any connection to the rest of Carnuntum. Until Neubauer's team scanned the empty fields around the monument, no one had any idea what went on beside this triumphal arch. Assembling the bigger picture is what scanning is all about.
What we found is the remains of huge temporary military camps which held thousands of Roman soldiers waiting for the next campaign.
The Heathen's Gate stood at the center of these great camps, reminding the soldiers of their allegiance to Rome.
So this is just a spot where Rome decided to concentrate the troops from all over the empire, from the eastern end of the Mediterranean up to Britain, to combat the barbarian tribes standing right on the other side of the Danube behind me.
Those German barbarian tribes were held back, but never defeated. They repeatedly broke into the empire from the north. Again and again, swamps and wild forests turned into blood-drenched battlefields. The Romans hated fighting these barbarians, an enemy on their home ground deep in the dank, dark forests. For 3 years, Emperor Marcus Aurelius even moved his headquarters to Carnuntum to direct the campaign. For many, he represented the best of Rome. He believed in virtue in the face of death itself. That would be demanded of gladiators too. In Rome, on the column named after him, his troops can be seen crossing the Danube on a temporary bridge on their way to a counterattack. But gladiators rarely joined in the fighting on the Danube front. They had another mission for the military. It was the gladiators' job to entertain the troops between the campaigns, to keep up their fighting spirit. And the army had the money to run the second big arena in Carnuntum.
The gladiator embodied certain warrior virtues as they were prized by the Romans. Stoic contempt of death, and, as one Roman writer called it, the love of beautiful wounds.
Beautiful wounds or not, the time was coming for Atticus to face the reality of combat. Real weapons, swords, and the full specialist protection that guaranteed an equal match. There were very many small variations in gladiator armor and weaponry. Slight differences in weapons and armor could make all the difference to the outcome of a bout.
There are two different possibilities to combine gladiators to a fighting pair. The one possibility is to put two gladiators of the same type against one another. Then they have the same equipment and nobody has an unfair advantage. The other possibility is to confront a gladiator with one of a different type, with different equipment. And this was much more popular because of the thrill of the diversity. And you can see by experiment that even in that case, the strengths and weaknesses are so well balanced that they have equal chances. After you had become the member of a certain class of gladiators, then you remained in that class. You were a retiarius and you remained a retiarius.
As a retiarius, with net and trident, you were vulnerable, but you were also maneuverable. By bobbing and weaving, you could keep your distance and get out of your opponent's field of vision. Fail at that, and he would close in with his short sword. And now, outsiders are taking an interest. A gladiator is beginning to be public as well as private property. And the retiarius has one more advantage. Not only can he see, he can be seen. If this were a real and not a practice fight, his opponent would be dead. And that might be a powerful attraction to a wealthy Roman matron used to getting exactly what she desired. Something for everyone. For the Lannister, the first return on his investment.
The strongest fascination of a gladiator was certainly the morbid allure of a man always confronted with death. Death by being a killer or getting killed himself.
A gladiator finishing his training might have felt it was the lull before the storm. With the confidence of having gained his skills, the insecurity of not having been truly tested. A tantalizing prospect for a citizen all too sure of her position in society. The trainee gladiator's life could be a strange mix of Spartan hardship and unaccustomed luxury. A far cry from the simple life he left behind in North Africa. It was a moment when two strands of Roman society came together. Each could reach into a forbidden world. For the gladiator especially, it was a mark of success, a kind of freedom.
The usual presentation of a gladiatorial school as a prison is one-sided. For the prisoners and for the convicted criminals, certainly there had to be restrictions and they had to be held under guard. But the real professional gladiators were volunteers and they led a quite normal life. A gladiator was a high investment because of his training and his living conditions.
The living conditions were expensive, and the Lanista was running a business. It's getting time to start planning the main event. After finishing their excavations on the site, the archaeologists rebuild the practice arena precisely where it originally stood, using Roman-era tools. It's the best way to test their theories. The seats are a clue that the arena was used to mount small-scale combats. And now the drama can be relived, exactly where it once took place. Tonight is Atticus' first combat in the practice arena. With admirers and privileged onlookers, sponsors who might invest huge sums to mount the games. If they're impressed. Now the stakes are higher. Real weapons, real combat. His opponent is a schizo, armed with a knife and a vicious scythe-like blade. If the schizo can reach Atticus, the crescent blade in his left hand will do terrible damage. But without the weight of armor, Atticus can move faster. Testing and taming the sizzle. Atticus has studied well. Even without his net, he keeps his distance. And when he gets it back, as the rules allow early in a bout, the moment comes. A classic slice to the unprotected thigh. And it's all over. Man down. The index finger rises in submission. The moment of truth. Not every gladiator combat ended in death. In fact, most didn't. The gladiator was far too valuable. If the loser had fought valiantly, the crowd usually wanted him spared. Ideally with a beautiful wound, which received the best possible care. Forensic scientist Fabian Kantz has made a special study of the bones of gladiators whose combat wounds had healed. Infections were notably rare. It seems the Romans had sound practical knowledge.
Superficial wounds, like cuts, were treated by cleaning and afterwards disinfected with vinegar. And for a better wound healing, honey and resin were applied.
Painkillers were in short supply. The gladiator needed his stoic training. Never show suffering, bravery, even in the face of death. But for Atticus, it's graduation day. From now on, it's for real. Unleashed on the public, he soon becomes a star. A name for the billboards far and wide. A supreme technician. And when it comes, in the din of the arena, killing is just part of the job. A gladiator could fall just as fast as he rose. A small walled plot just outside the school is a poignant reminder of that. Wolfgang Neubauer's team has found a cemetery. Sifting every inch, this time through ashes, they hit pay dirt.
We excavated a burial pit with a cremation, an oil lamp and golden jewelry.
It was a clip to hold a cloak together. A reminder of glamorous times. On the night before an especially big tournament, the Lanista hosted a dinner, the Cena Libera, open to an elite public. The fighters were on show. It was part of the game to display a cool bravado, one of the Roman virtues they were trained to embody. The city's elite came to check out the talent and lay their bets. A big night for Atticus, back in his home arena. But feelings are mixed tonight. These are the men he trained with.
The gladiator lived in a tragic stress situation. Many combats were fought out between the members of one and the same gladiatorial group, and so he had to expect that it would be confronted in the arena by a man with whom he had lived together, who had been his comrade and even his friend, and than to fight with him in a combat of life and death.
School's out. It's the day of the games. And archaeologist Wolfgang Neubauer has discovered a last, unexpected piece of the puzzle that brings this combination of sport and brutality closer to us than ever.
So we have now also finished the eastern part of the amphitheater area, and you see there is an empty space between the School of Gladiators and this new area, and it looks like we have a series of buildings alongside the road leading directly to the amphitheater.
What's this here in the middle with the chambers?
This is an interesting building. Look here, you have very clearly the subconstruction where they had the food for the people in heated pots. Also the front of the other buildings is very obviously something we would actually expect for shops. So it would be a series of shops alongside the path into the amphitheater when the people went to the games.
That makes good sense.
Yeah.
Just like today, big sporting events meant a business opportunity for vendors selling everything from food to souvenirs. The Romans knew their business. You could be sure the Lanista and the sponsors had a hand in it. They had a captive audience, enjoying the essential support to any great sporting event. A lively sale of snacks, scents and merchandise to get the people in the mood, including talismans to bring good luck to your favorite gladiator. Up to 12,000 eager citizens could gather in Carnuntum's arena to see Atticus return. A top gladiator might thrill his fan base with over 20 combats. He could make his Lanista and the sponsors very rich. An early, powerful advantage to Atticus. Too early. The crowd and the sponsors want more. Atticus' opponent trained with him and knows his every move, every trick. He knows what to expect. He knows when to duck. Atticus mistimes his throw. So late in the bout, he won't get his net back. Now both men are hurt, but Atticus is drained and desperate. A gladiator's death. Emperor Marcus Aurelius, a great Roman who once defended the city of Carnuntum, wrote, "Everything you now see will very swiftly pass away, and those who have watched it passing will swiftly pass away in their turn. And he who dies in extreme old age will be brought to a level with one who has died before his time." There could hardly be a better expression of the virtues the gladiators were trained to embody. And reflect that neither remembrance, nor fame, nor anything else whatsoever is worth a passing thought. Carnuntum lived on for 250 years after the time of Marcus Aurelius and our fictional Atticus. But the barbarians kept attacking. Finally, the empire abandoned its northern frontier, evacuating the city.
After the Romans retreated from the Danube, Carnuntum became a ghost town. And in the end, even that faded away.
It may have faded away, but it left hidden clues that are only now, after 2,000 years, coming to the surface. Like an old-style photograph, images magically appear that help us reconstruct a lost civilization with unprecedented clarity. One very like our own, and so shockingly different. This was Carnuntum. Lost city of gladiators.